all. Dear students, today we are going to have a discussion on Mr. Collins, who is one of the characters in Jane Austen's novel, Pride and Prejudice. This character, along with many other characters, is a little bit different character as compared to Mr. Bingley or Mr. Darcy or even Mr. Wickham. This character, who has been named as Mr. Collins, he is from Hunsford, but is the man, one of the men, rather, we should say, that he can talk anything, he can say anything, and he has a firm belief about himself that he is one of the wonderful characters ever found. Mr. Collins, for example, when he writes a letter to Bennet's family that he wants to visit them, that letter is indicative of the fact that how much he talks, how many words he uses in order to convey just one message that he is going to visit their family. This thing he could have said just in one line, but he uses full page. As you can see in chapter 13, the letter written by him has a number of sentences which are beyond understanding why he is using so many sentences. The contents of his letter go to show that he wants to highlight his position, and for this purpose he uses number of words which is quite evident and number of sentences which is quite evident in the letter. And same is the case with the lady who has brought him up. That lady also is of very high esteem for him, and in order to prove her esteem, he uses number of expressions and sentences, and ultimately declares the message in the end that he is going to visit the Bennet's family very soon. So in that way, pompuosity and wordiness of Mr. Collins is quite visible. So as a character, Mr. Collins is a very wordy character that he speaks too much, uses too many words in order to reveal and show his scholarship, and in order to show that he is the one who's very much mannerly, but actually is over mannerly. So as compared to the men in this novel, like Mr. Bingley and Mr. Darcy, he is a different character, and we can see that the opinion of Jane Austen about this character is a little bit unpositive. That's not going to be as elegant as was the case with Mr. Darcy or with Mr. Bingley. It's a different character. Let us further see how we can understand his character, what are the major characteristics that he displays in these chapters like chapter 13, 14, and 15. In the current passage, we can say that Jane Austen has given certain details about Mr. Collins, that he was visiting or was about to visit Bennet family home, but before he arrives, he is there to be described by the writer.
It's 0
For
hours.
example, Mr. Collins was all the time showing himself that he was a very mannerly person. We are told by Jane Austen that he was tall and he was very happy looking young man of 25, and most of the time he had a very stiffly and grave type of behavior, and his manners were most of the time very formally, and so in that way he is different from the other characters. Let's see how he arrives there, what kind of discussion he makes with Mrs. Bennet, and he tries to show that he's very obedient, very civilized, very cultured. This type of cultural or over formal behavior, that is what he is stressing on. And in this passage, he also declares that he intends to marry, and this intention of marriage, though will be creating stirs in the mind of Mrs. Bennet, because he's all the time looking for any young man who should come and see, provided he is an eligible bachelor, and see her daughters and would go forward in order to marry one of her daughters. That is what he's most of the time concerned in. She's most of the time concerned in, and Mr. Collins therefore is going to be a good hunt for her. But her daughters are quite different from her, so that is why probably the match may be in great difficulty if it is attempted to be made. In the current passage, we can see that there are certain misgivings, there are certain fears, and the kind of warned feelings in the mind of Miss Bennet. When Mr. Collins enters their home, he tries to admire everything of the home, not only the people, but also the properties. I mean, the chairs, the sofas, the tables, and everything like that. He praises, and even goes to the kitchen and praises the kitchen as well. All these things create a type of impression in the mind of Mrs. Bennet that Mr. Collins probably is the one who will be inheriting the property of her husband, because they don't have a son, a son who could inherit a father's property. They had only daughters, and it was suspected that the daughters won't be able to get this property. So Mr. Collins is the one who will be inheriting that property. And when he has a good eye on the furniture and other articles of the home, Mr. Bennet begins thinking probably Mr. Collins is giving the impression that he is the one who will possess all these things when he becomes the heir of their family. In that way, a type of threat of warning is available for Miss Bennet, but it is perhaps not the case with Mr. Collins. But he is very much showy, very much formally dealing and behaving, and all the time praising everything, admiring everything. So not only he admires the people at home, but also keeps on admiring the furniture or the other things, which is a little bit mortifying to Mrs. Bennet. In the beginning of chapter 15, Jane Austen has taken the opportunity in the very opening passage in order to let the reader know what has been the background of Mr. Collins. We come to know through certain of these lines that Mr. Collins was not basically that much rich person. His father was not also that much rich. As a result, he was brought up by one person whose name Lady Catherine has been given the paragraph. This person was kind enough to Mr. Collins, and she spent money on him in order to give him the university education and to give him social status as well. When he had got all type of university education regarding his becoming the priest, he was appointed the priest as well. In that way, he is indebted to Lady Catherine in many ways. Number one, that he has been brought up by her. Number two, that education was something which was given by that lady or the expenses of that lady, and perhaps the job which he has been given is also one of the kindnesses of that lady. So in that way, Mr. Collins is too much indebted to that, and he does not restrict from saying number of important words about that lady. It's a type of overestimation of that lady, or he's trying to overpraise and admire that lady. The same pompuosity he uses here in the praise of that lady as he had used the pompuosity in case of the description of his arrival to Bennet's family. And this is what again goes to show that he is very pompous, though his background is not going to be that popular as we have found in case of Mr. Bingley and Mr. Darcy. He was declared by the writer as having vacant of mind, as the writer declares about the younger daughters, parent daughters, like Catherine, Lydia, and Mary, that they were more vacant and shallow. In the same way, the vacantness of the brain has been talked about regarding Mr. Collins in this passage as well. That I have again selected from the same chapter 15 that talks about the intentions of this Mr. Collins. He openly declares that now he's got a good home, he's got good income and a good job, and therefore he intends to marry one of the beautiful cousins who were the band sisters actually. And he doesn't specifically say that he's going to marry which girl. Either it's going to be Jane or it's going to be Elizabeth or which one. He simply says that he thinks that he is suitable, eligible bachelor, and therefore he would like to marry one of the daughters of this family. And this is therefore a very good news for Mrs. Bennet, but it may not be that good news for the girls. But still, a lot of laughter, a lot of discussion is carried on for this gentleman and about this gentleman. This is something which is creating not only the stir but also a kind of worry into the brains of the girls of the Bennet's family. In the next paragraph, that is about again the plans of Mr. Collins, that he's going to marry one of the beautiful daughters, and in this case, definitely he chooses to talk about Jane because, according to him, Jane is the eldest one and she's the pretty one as well. Because of this situation, he throws eyes on Jane and wants to talk to the mom of the girls, and his dialogue therefore takes place with the mom. After the whole of the dialogue, it comes out that Jane is going to have her relationship with somebody else, and that is why Mr. Collins cannot have her. And the strange thing about Mr. Collins is that he immediately shifts from Jane to Elizabeth and is ready to talk to the mom and Elizabeth to herself that he will be choosing her for the sake of marriage. This shift goes to say that for him, any girl would do. That means he's not choosy about his love, about his other matters of marriage, that he should be fixed with one. He can shift from one to the other. And this is the thing which perhaps Jane Austen herself doesn't like. And this is the thing perhaps is not liked by the Bennet sisters, though it may be liked by Mrs. Bennet, who says continuously to Elizabeth that she should say yes to the demands of Mr. Collins so that marriage can take place, any one marriage can take place, without thinking whether Mr. Collins was a wise man or not, was a sensible man or not, or he was the type of man who would be rejected by Elizabeth. But it is Elizabeth who will definitely not think in so positive term about a man who is not sensible one, who doesn't behave in a proper way, or who is a pompous one. She would never like that, and that is why this wish of this marriage is not going to fulfill. Because of this situation, when this wish does not fulfill, at that time we see that the entry of other families like Charlotte Lucas takes place there. Mr. Collins visits them, and ultimately he chooses Charlotte for his marriage. And in that way, none of the daughters of Bennet's family could marry Mr. Collins, and an eligible bachelor. I mean, the ironical eligible bachelor, because he's though eligible, but still he doesn't possess the qualities of being a sober person, serious and noble person. These are not available in him, and that is why he is he is out of this family, and the Barron's family is unable to marry Mr. Collins. So that is why all these qualities combined together make Mr. Collins to be someone who, though apparently is very acceptable, but because of his behaviors, because of his pompousness, because of his wordiness, he is not liked in that way. His overpraise of Lady Catherine again causes a lot of trouble in the minds of the Bennet sisters, and that is why it is fine anyone to marry him. So this is the character of Mr. Collins, and that's it for today's video. Hopefully seeing you in some next video. Thank you all.